Life is too short to play small. You were designed for big things. You are listening to the Big Design Energy Podcast. The human design system is not a belief system. It does not require that you believe in anything. It is neither stories nor philosophy. It is a concrete map to the nature of being, a mapping of your genetic code. This ability to be able to detail the mechanics of our nature in such depth is obviously profound, because it reveals our complete nature in all its subtleties. Human design opens a door to the potential of self-love, a love of life, and the love of others through understanding. Welcome back, everybody. I thought that was an amazing quote to get this episode started out. It's from Ra Uru Hu, the founder of human design. And today we're going to be doing a deep dive into something you might be kind of familiar with, maybe not so familiar with when it comes to human design. I feel like the majority of the content out there is related to type and, your strategy and your authority. Of course, there's a lot of stuff, on profiles, and if you look hard enough, you can find any information these days, right? But this hit me pretty hard recently, and I'll share with you. So I have been doing my own personal work, and I say work with quotation marks around it. And it came to a point where I questioned, do I give a shit about human design? You notice in one of the last episodes, I said design from a broader standpoint, not just specifically related to human design. Your energetic blueprint and your design, how you were designed to be in this life, but not just from a traditional human design standpoint. I was struggling. And then once I let go of the attachment that I had created to human design, because when I found it, it gave me such clarity, because when I found it, it gave me a language to describe how I felt. And let's be real, human design, it gives you these practical tools to experiment and live your life with, like your strategy and your authority. But without experimenting, human design really is just a fascinating system for the mind. My mind was fascinated. But I feel like I had kind of just gone overdo it. And so I took a step back, I released, and I said, you know what? If everything I've done, this past year, releasing this podcast and all of my other studies and the time and energy that I've put into learning this human design system, if it wasn't not the truth, but if this isn't, what I'm meant to be teaching, studying, then so be it. Not attached. And then when I had the full acceptance, when I detached, that is when all of the information I'm going to share with you today just really hit me hard, being able to comprehend it in a whole new light. So maybe today, some of this stuff, maybe, all of it. Maybe you only get it really at the surface level. Maybe you only can conceptualize and understand it. And maybe later you come back and re-listen to this episode and, ooh, you get it. This all began when Ra Uru Hu had this crazy experience, as he describes it, January 3rd, 1987 in Ibiza. For 8 straight days and nights, what he calls the voice gave him all of this information to synthesize and to bring to us. And that is how the human design system was born. What I always found fascinating and my mind loves, is the fact that it combines 2 different types of sciences, right? We have the ancient observational systems of astrology, the I Ching, the chakras, the tree of life, and then we move into more modern day sciences, right? Quantum mechanics, astronomy, genetics, biochemistry. So if you've dismissed some of the more woo, or sciences that are considered woo these days, right? Because there's not enough evidence, or it's too general. Well, we got a lot of shit going on here, so don't worry. We are going to cover it today, but with everything, you can even go deeper. So if you need to go deeper to satisfy yourself, if that's what you need to do. Okay, now we have this backstory, which I said sounded a little crazy, but I just think of different religious stories and realize, maybe it's not that crazy. Not that human design is a religion, it's not, right? We started with that quote. It's not a religion, it's not a story, it's not a philosophy, it's not a belief system. So what the fuck is it? Well, it is really about understanding, becoming aware of the meaning of life, the reason we're here, and how one size fits all programming and different conditioning, unsurprisingly, does not work for everyone, right? We already knew that. Okay, so let's start at the beginning, right? The Big Bang. Oof. The voice told Ra, and I have heard this elsewhere, so this is not, again, singular to human design. Most, if not all aspects of human design are not singular to human design, which I feel gives it more credibility if you need that credibility again. But the Big Bang was just the conception of the universe. This means we are still like a little fetus in the womb. The universe has not birthed yet. You can also think of the Big Bang and the universe, the state of the universe right now, as a breath. Breathing in, breathing out, the expansion and the contraction. So the Big Bang is the expansion, right? And then, duality, whenever the universe decides to contract and breathe in, then essentially the universe will start over, right? But okay, we don't need to get too deep into that. So, how did this Big Bang even happen? Well, 2 particles came together. We have the yin and the yang. And so when they came together, boom, explosion. And that is how we got the Big Bang. The voice likened these atoms, the yin and the yang, to crystalline structures. not actually or specifically crystals, but that's the best way for us to visualize and conceptualize it. So these two crystals came together, the explosion. Now there's little tiny pieces of the yin and the yang, pew, 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 everywhere, creating like inside of everything. So yes, we have yin and yang in us. We have, these two different atoms within us. So the yin, this is the traditional atom that we think about here on Earth. That makes up like 10% of the universe, right? And the other energy they say is dark matter, black matter. We don't know. Who knows what's going on? This is where the yang comes into play. This is where neutrinos come into play. I've talked about neutrinos before on a few episodes, but we're going to do it again. So neutrinos, these are subatomic particles. They are also called the breath of the stars, which again, we have this metaphor to the breath, which I just love. This was a prediction from human design. So when Ra got this knowledge, this had not been scientifically proven yet. Neutrinos existing had not been proven by science. It wasn't until actually 11 years later in 1998 when science validated this claim, right? So neutrinos, subatomic particles, they travel so close to the speed of light, but just like 1 to 2% slower than the speed of light. Meaning they are able to carry mass, but also travel through any and every object. So, I talked about this on the sun episode because the sun, spoiler, is the closest star in our solar system, in our galaxy, to us. And so, like I said, this is called the breath of the stars. So these stars create these neutrinos, these little subatomic particles. So our sun is responsible for 70% of this neutrino conditioning, imprinting that we receive. The other 30%, other stars in the Milky Way galaxy, and Jupiter. Jupiter produces its own neutrinos. It has like its own little mini solar system almost going on just by itself, which is pretty cool. So Ra refers to these neutrinos as tiny cosmic messengers. Like I said, the breath of the stars, they are the exhaled energy of stellar fusion. 3 trillion neutrinos and all of the information that they carry, since they are so small and move so fast, they are able to move through anything and kind of have this exchange of information. 3 trillion neutrinos with all of that information pass through every square inch of our planet, which includes us, every second. Like the design part of our chart, we're not aware of it. We're not aware of neutrinos, right? We didn't know. You don't realize you're being impacted and imprinted on with all of this different information from tiny little cosmic messengers, like at every moment, 3 million a second. It's insanity, right? But also, it's normal because it's been happening and it will happen until it doesn't. So these neutrinos, the yang aspect, this relates, like I said, to the design. So this is the design crystal of consciousness. And then the personality crystal of consciousness is the atoms. So this is what we're aware of. I understand this information could be pretty foreign to you, depending on, one, just your understanding of the human design language, and then your system as well. So, to recap, the Big Bang. We had these two parts coming together, the yin and the yang. Or, if we're going to use human design, we can talk about the personality and the design coming together. Explosion. Now, all of these particles, little tiny pieces of crystal, are in everything. Anything you can imagine. Have both of these crystals of consciousness. That means we are binary consciousness, right? We have this personality aspect, who we think we are. We have this design aspect of what we are unaware of, unconscious of. Why is this important? Because, like we said with the neutrinos, how they pass through everything. Imagine like a little fender bender. A white car hits a black car. Now there's a little bit of the white paint on the black car. There's a little bit of the black paint on the white car. So we are getting all of this information. That's why, they utilize systems like astrology. Different placements of the stars affect the information that is passing through and traveling at the time while calculating your chart. So when calculating your chart, the design date, which you may have heard before, 88 days, 90 days, about 3 months prior to birth, that is the design date. So that's kind of like the final imprint of neutrinos, that the design aspect, the unconscious awareness aspect of yourself, of your chart, was created. Why? Because that is when the personality crystal of consciousness was called in to the body. So the personality, I guess, date is your birth date. So that is the imprints of when you were born, when you exited your mother's womb, or, through a C-section. When you were born, that is the imprint of the universe. And it doesn't matter if you were premature or, overcooked a little bit. I was a little overcooked, but hey, everything happens for a reason, right? If I was supposed to be born earlier, I would have been born earlier. So let's just go over the basics real quick of the chart, the personality side and the design side. And then we'll kind of dive into more specifically the crystals, which there's going to be a lot of overlap, but let's dive in. So the personality side, this is the side that's in black. I know there's a lot of different sites you can get your chart from now, but traditionally, the majority of them, the personality is going to be in black. So this is what you have conscious access to. This is who you think you are. Who you are on this earth, and things are happening to you, or for you, or by you. That is this side. When in reality, the key to success, quote unquote success, the key to having the human experience you were supposed to have, once again, none of these words seem right, because if you were supposed to have a completely unenlightened, stressful shit show of an experience on Earth, then that's what you're going to get. But if you're here and you're listening to this, the personality was designed, was made to be a fully participating observer. Keyword being observer. the example given in the definitive book of human design is as if you're sitting atop a hill, watching all the cars go by, waving at them. You can see everything that's going on. Now, when we go to the design side, this is a side, again, traditionally in red. This is the unconscious awareness, like I mentioned, and also it shows you like your genetic and ancestral traits. So traits you might have picked up from your mother, father, grandparents. This is designed to be quite what the personality thinks it is, right? So this is designed to be the genetic programming to move you through time and space. This is actually, right, how you're supposed to be navigating. So in contrast to sitting upon a hill, seeing everything, observing, participating, this is more a little surprise, a little what the fuck just came out of my mouth. You're looking down a tunnel. You can't see what's coming next. You don't know what's coming next. You still might shock yourself. And so how do we make this unconscious design conscious? Well, that is through the experimentation, through the strategy, through authority. That is the human design way of making this unconsciousness conscious. I'm going to trip up over my words. It's not the only way. There are other ways. I'm experimenting with other ways, of course, but this is, a very, I don't want to say simple, but this is a practical tool. Here's your strategy. Here's your authority. Just use these two things. You don't have to study human design. You really don't need to know more than that. If you do that, then that is going to take the personality, aka your mind, out of the equation. Because that's what the authority is. It's a way to make decisions that is not your mind. And then that brings your unconscious awareness to the forefront. Then you become aware of the unconscious awareness. So, let's move on to the magnetic monopole. This is what holds everything together. Another thing that was not first scientifically proven, I'm not sure, if it was recently proven prior to human design system coming out, but this was something that for a very long time it was questioned whether this existed. And so that is really just having a single attraction. And what that single attraction is attracting your personality and your design together. They liken it to a forced marriage because, they don't really want to be together. The personality thinks it's in charge and the design understands, but is, buried, is a little hidden. So they're forcing it together and it's trying to blend this together. That's what gives us this human experience. That's what gives us the full body graph. That's what combines the personality chart with your design chart together to get the body graph. It's held together by the magnetic monopole. So this example I mentioned briefly of the passenger, the vehicle, and the driver. So your personality crystal, your mind, is the passenger. More so like a backseat passenger. You're nowhere near the steering wheel. The vehicle they give in the example is a limousine. So you were sitting at the back of a limousine and you would have to crawl 6 to 10 feet and try and reach through that little tiny window to to steer the car. But that's what the personality thinks it is. It thinks it's the one in charge. It thinks it's the one making decisions. And then the design crystal is the vehicle. That is our form consciousness. That's our physical body. So my body is my vehicle on how I move in this incarnation on Earth. And then the magnetic monopole is the driver. So that is the one who actually knows where to go, how to get there. So, like I mentioned, we can dive a little deeper. The personality crystal is located not even in the body graph. It is slightly above the head center. So understand the gravity of that statement, right? Something that thinks it is in control of your life and is responsible for making decisions, taking action, is not even located within your body graph. It is placed just above your top center. If we were doing chakras, right above your head. It really has no idea where to go. No idea how to get there. But what it does is it takes, this information from the past and then tries to make decisions based off that, of what happened in the past. Like you try and make one decision and, oh, that didn't work. Okay, well, let's try this. That'll totally work. Okay, that didn't work either. Well, this one will definitely work. It really is just a case of the mind thinking anything, using anything to grip on to any semblance of control that it wants to have. When in reality, that's, an illusion. It's total illusion. Like I said, the backseat passenger, you're just supposed to be relaxed, quiet, observe. You can participate. You get to wave at people. You can talk to people. But you are not, I don't want to say you're not affecting your life, but you, because you can definitely, especially in the not self, but you are not the driver. The personality is not the driver. But what it does is it, instead of being relaxed and observing, an observing participant, an observing passenger, it tries to fight for control. And that's why I love this example, especially with the limousine, because it's not just like, okay, you're sitting in the passenger seat. No, you are sitting at the back of a limousine. And you have to make your way through the body of the limousine, through that little window, to try and what? Steer the limousine? That seems like a major fight. But your mind is going to give every rhyme and reason as to why it should fight and why it is in control. And, oh, no. Because see, last time I did this happened. Now, the personality is unaware of the design's existence. So, the personality thinks it's everything. It thinks it's the car and the vehicle and the driver and the passenger and all the above. It doesn't understand there's something else behind the scenes, which is really guiding the story, guiding your life. So the design crystal is located in the center directly below the head center, the ajna, and it's right between the eyebrows. Like I said, this is form consciousness. This is your body manifested. So how you get around in this incarnation. When you surrender to the design, to your form consciousness, that is when you're able to bypass all of the conditioning, all of the other elements and stress and bullshit that you receive while you're unaware of the design's existence. So a lot of human design and then human design teaching, at least how it's being marketed, is like decondition yourself. Decondition yourself. And it's, well, they say 7-year process because it takes 7 years for, cells to regenerate. And then essentially after 7 years, once again, not a doctor, not a scientist. So you can correct me if I'm wrong, but 7 years, all your cells regenerate. So in theory, that conditioning imprint will no longer be there. I first heard about that 7-year cell thing from, I think, like a post on Tumblr when I was 15. So there was some moody days with that one, especially as a female manifester with emotional authority, 5-1 profile, open G. I could go on and on, guys, but I don't need to. It's fun experience. So, but what Ra even says, if you know where to look and know how to listen, is that you can bypass all of those. You don't need to decondition when you surrender to your unconscious awareness. Let that sink in. And I'm sure, there'll be someone who wants to hate or say it's not true. But hey, if that's your belief, that's your belief. It doesn't affect me. Okay. The magnetic monopole. Guys, I love this. So this is in your G center. So it goes head, ajna, then we have the throat. Right under the throat is the G. So in the G center, around your sternum, that's the driver. This is like what we could call destiny in life. And destiny or fate, what does all of that imply? Well, it implies a lack of free will, right? So there's this larger script, if you want to say, of your life. And the magnetic monopole is the driver, making sure you're on track with your destiny. Like I said, it's just that single attraction. This quote, this is a great example of what shook me the other day when I read it. The magnetic monopole holds us and everything together in the illusion of separateness. Said it before, I'll say it again. We are all one. When you get down to the core of it, the universe was created from one atom, right? From one consciousness. And now there's all these little tiny fragmented pieces with different parts, different little fragments of consciousness out here. And in order to learn about itself, in order to experience things with limitations, because when you are unlimited, then, right, like happiness, sadness, these things, these feelings, these emotions we cling to don't exist because you are everything and there is no good or bad. Everything just is. It's neutrality. So this magnetic monopole holding us together in this illusion of separateness We forget that hurting someone else is hurting ourselves, that helping someone else is helping us, that every time we judge someone or something, it really is self-judgment. This is all a reflection. This is all just so dense and so tricky, right? Because we forget we are not all one powerful beings who chose to come incarnate at this exact time, at this exact place, going through these events that have happened in our lives. We forget that everything that is supposed to happen will happen. And that's where it gets tricky with the personality. Because it comes in things. Okay, I need to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. Then I'll lose 5 pounds. Then I'll have, an amazing launch because my marketing campaign went well. Then I'll get this raise. Then I'll prove my worthiness. Then I'll feel safe. Then I do all of these things. When in reality, if you were meant to live a life of, lavishness, then you will. If you were meant to live a life of homelessness, then you will. So the magnetic monopole really guides us on our path. If you've been listening to the recent episodes, then you should have an idea that this is, where my mind. It's interesting how much we use the word mind, but for human purposes, this unconscious awareness is becoming conscious. And it's a hard pill to swallow at first, right? The lack of free will, the lack of having a choice. And I know I've said before that this is a free will universe. And that's why I don't have all the answers. I know this is going off on a little personal rant, but we're going to keep going. So I feel like, you can choose if you wear a pink top or an orange top. And you can choose what kind of car you drive and if you go to Starbucks or not. But like I said, if you're supposed to be homeless, if you want to experience a lot of, I don't want to say trauma, but if you chose to come here and experience pain, because maybe all your other lives have been just pretty easy, then you're going to experience pain, even if you're a good person, even if you do all the right things. So ultimately, you might have little choices here or there, but they might not really impact you, impact the greater script, the greater plan, your greater path, your journey, whatever you want to call it. Another quote that really stuck out to me was, if you live by your personal strategy and authority, there is nothing to do. The doing happens, and you are not interfering. Ra said it beautifully there. So that's what I mean. You are not interfering with your destiny, your fate, by wearing a pink or an orange shirt if you're in that state of having the unconscious awareness conscious. But if you are acting from your not self, then you will be interfering with your destiny. But ultimately, it is a destiny, right? So this is the part where we hit the profound shit. This is the part that goes from being, a little kooky to a little scientific to a little epiphany-ish. I was going to say epiphanetic, but I really don't think that's a word. It's about becoming aware of the illusion that our mind believes that it's in control, the illusion that we are all separate. Ra also says, what you can rely on, you've never relied on in your life. What you can't trust, you've been trying to trust all your life. What you've been trusting has never been you. What you've been ignoring has always been you. Try to trust what's really you and see what happens. Which I went to lunch with my dad last week, and he's very much in this spiritual world with me. He gets it. So, and he sees everything I post and likes almost everything. Thanks, Dad. So I read him this quote, actually, and he's like, yeah, I saw you posted it, but I think it's a little esoteric. I think it's a little, not convoluted, but just, it's not that easy to understand. Like, I like to break things down in more simple terms and simple verbiage to convey my point across. And while that's amazing, and we need people out there who make complicated things simple, I enjoy the story created through these words. The fact that you have to sit and think and read this a few times over. The fact that it gets you to think. Like, what you can rely on, you've never relied on in your life. Hold on, stop. What the fuck did you just say? I've never relied on what I can rely on in my life? Okay, you have my attention. What you can't trust, you've been trying to trust all your life. Well, shit. I'm hooked. I'm in. Give me more. What you've been trusting has never been you. I liked this part because I shared this before. I can't remember what episode, but when I first really got into, trying to work on my limiting beliefs and conditioning and mindset and all of these things, when I spent time with myself and I guess observed the thoughts I had, I was like, these are not my thoughts. This does not feel like me. I'm thinking them, but they're not me. So I've had this experience to where the body, my design is realizing that my personality, the mind, what I've been conditioned to think is me, think are truths. That these consequences I've created out of nowhere are fucking real and exist and matter. It hasn't been me, right? It's been this mind, this personality who really doesn't have a say, doesn't know where I'm going, and doesn't know how to get there. What you've always been ignoring has always been you. And it's right, it's like those intuitive hits, those nudges, just the knowing. Again, it's like different than understanding this quote, understanding this episode, and having this knowing. It's like on the previous episode when I took a moment, which turned out to be 1 minute, to just sit and be. Be with your unconscious awareness. I could feel it. I'm not just sitting there thinking about what I have to do later, this or that. And yes, sometimes those thoughts come up, but it's hard to explain. I've been there, done that when it comes to following the mind, when it comes to following the personality. And it never felt right. So, why not join me if it doesn't feel right for you as well? Letting your unconscious awareness take the lead. Giving the mind, giving your conscious awareness, giving your personality, crystal, a break. And letting that unconscious awareness come to the surface. Well, I think that is all I have to say on this episode. I would love to hear your thoughts because, again, I knew about this. I heard about it. It's common-ish, right? But this knowing, this level of really just feeling this information versus reading and understanding. Maybe reading and not understanding, right? Because like my dad said, it's a little, it's a whole new language. It's could possibly be said in less words, but it really was intentional, right? Because if this hidden in plain sight information in a system that, okay, we could say is nowhere near as popular as astrology, like your zodiac sign, for example. Is the world ready for this? Are you ready for this? Am I ready for this? Ready to surrender to the script of your life? So within a couple weeks' time, I went from questioning, did I fuck up? Did I make a mistake? Was all this for nothing? The mind asks all these questions. Am I even going to continue doing human design? Do I want to utilize human design in my coaching? To seeing what was right in front of me and knowing that human design is at least for now, who knows, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 10 years, I could have a different opinion. But for now, human design, there is so much value. And a lot of that value I don't see being portrayed that often. So regardless of where my clients will be in their understanding of human design as a concept, the language, other more tougher concepts like the issue of free will, fates, destiny, collective consciousness, and multiple lives, past lives, everything. I have such flexibility and such freedom to pick and choose what is going to best support them through human design. and do so in a way that I have never experienced when I was working with other coaches, mentors, listening to podcasts, whatever. Never had it explained to me. I have not experienced this. So if you are interested in experiencing human design in a whole new way, in a way that, like I mentioned before, we don't have to focus on deconditioning every little thought and issue that comes up. What we're going to do, we're going to get that personality crystal, your mind, to the quiet, relaxed, observing backseat passenger like it was always meant to be. And the design crystal, your unconscious awareness. Bring that to the surface. Become aware of that so that you surrender to your story and destiny works out and you get to enjoy the ride. You get to enjoy the pleasures and the pain and the neutrality, the mundaneness, the amazingness of it all. Thank you for listening to Big Design Energy. Please share with your friends, share on social media if this resonated with you today. Rate, review, and subscribe